in like Western art, like uh, like the Western have been like depicting like wedding ceremonies in art as old as the ancient Egyptians, in the in like the tombs of like the aristocracy or like the pharaoh more specifically. Then he would show himself in the afterlife. He would commemorate the day that he got like his queen and stuff, because it was very important to show. Well, then again, it was like tombs and stuff were like private venues, so he wanted to make certain that in the afterlife he will get like reunited with his spouse, because like the as far as the ancient Egyptian religion, like the pharaoh's work wasn't done after death. Then in the afterlife they would put like paintings and stuff, or and even like food of everything he would need in order to continue his work in the afterlife. So obviously he would want to have his wife there to help him along. Like with the ancient Greeks, weddings were not too hyper. Didn't like yeah, the gods would also like show up in the wedding. They would even get like depicted divine figures in like the weddings of the play of like the regular mortals. And then even like in the Iliad, even like in their ancient Greek plays, they would also like mention like the famous weddings between gods and mortals and vice versa. Cause the way that the ancient Greeks saw, like they said that like that the gods were just like the regular humans, but they had obviously got like powers, and humans could ascend to godhood, and the gods could also die, like how it happened to Charon. The centaur, that he was divine, but then like a heavy boulder fell on him. So then, since he was in constant pain all the time because nobody could lift that giant rock, then he gave up his divinity. So basically, like the wedding stuff, they would also like the Greek depiction of wedding would also include like divine figures and so forth. With the romance, as far as marriage is concerned, it was more of a private affair, but they were like but they were more home friendly. Like the nuclear family was very important in like Roman society, and they even had like a goddess specifically, completely detached from like the other pantheons. That was just the goddess Hestia, the goddess of the house. So then over here we see a sculpture of like a marriage contract between two individuals, because when like people got married, it wasn't like usually for love. It was a marriage contract between like two families where they combine their wealth and like they get the dowry and everything in between. When we get to like after paganism fell, and Catholicism became seen, the only weddings that were ever depicted in art was weddings that took place in like the Bible. So the only big weddings that you saw was usually the marriage of the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph, or the infamous wedding in Cana where Jesus Christ he turned like blood, where he turned wine, where he turned water into wine. So if it so it's so then like regular citizens, they stop appearing in like paintings. Like for a while, every so often you will see one where like it was the wedding between like a king and queen, and then they would want to have a wedding portrait. But in medieval times, since the monks were doing the paintings, then it became hyper focused on like just depicting weddings that appear in the Bible. If it's not in the Bible, we are not painting it. And here's 1305, the auto, the wedding procession of the Virgin Mary, and then over here she is about to get married. And then eventually we reach like the Renaissance period, and this is one of the very famous wedding portraits. The 1434 Jan van Eyck and the Arnolfini wedding. Like this one is kind of interesting because it's not like taking place in like a chapel or anything. And since they have holding hands and they're in prayer position, it's more like almost like a private wedding or a shotgun wedding. And then over here, in like reflected in the mirror, there's an interesting detail because there's two individuals. So here, let me just zoom in very deep so you can see it well. Two individuals, one in red and one in blue, so you could see that that's the witness and the priest officiating their wedding. So then they're already like in the bed chambers, like about to consummate their union. So yeah, and even he has the shoes off. But I guess maybe the shoes off could be like this house has become like Sacramento ground, but it's a very peculiar wedding portrait between these two individuals. Over here in 5063, Paolo Veronese or Renaissance period. Over here we have the wedding in Canada. Well, what's interesting is that like the characters they're like dressed like common Europeans at the time, like Renaissance people. So it's one of those types of painting where they put the audience and the regular humans in like the Bible setting, in order to try to make the scenes in the Bible feel like they're happening in the modern day. And over here we have, as we zoom in, we gotta zoom in a lot. Jesus Christ and his mother, and then they're telling him that like Jesus, we are out of the good wine. So then the mother's telling him to go make some wine, and you could almost see this as like a portrait because all of the people that pay for the painting also show up here as characters from like various facets of life. Like over here, you see that there is various nobles and like even foreigners who also pay to be in the painting. Cause that's the only way that cause a lot of those paintings that were for like church and stuff, the rich patrons they would pay for. So then the ones that help pay the painting, they would show up there in the work of art, and then in the middle, Jesus and the Virgin Mary. This one is 1568 Pierre Brugo the Elder, the peasant wedding. While this is a more of a noble affair, the peasant wedding is more chaotic in nature, and even like children are hanging out and doing children's thing. So then, oh yeah, so here let me show you and here's the husband and wife, and obviously the mother-in-law in the middle, because apparently she's gonna be coming along to coach her, because most women, women traditionally didn't learn of the birds and bees until it was time to consummate their union. So then, while the wedding feast is going on, she's coaching the bride into what she can expect once it's time to consummate their union, like giving her a crash course on how babies are made. And this one, we're in the Baroque period, is 1622, Peter Paul Rubens, The Wedding by Proxy on Maria de Medici to the King Henry the Sixth. Fourth, yeah, I think that's a four. And basically, this was a collection of paintings that were commissioned in order to legitimize the union between these two royals. But why it's called by proxy is because neither of them were there to this wedding picture is not based on true events. It's just they wanted a wedding portrait, but neither of the spouses could tolerate each other. So for them, they had to legitimize their political marriage. So then they made portraits, with one working with one person that was in the other side of the planet and the other one in another country. And then they sort of here trying to say that, oh look, they're cute couple, they love each other, they're so happy to be together. But even painting wise, you can kind of see just how much mutual disdain the husband and wife have for one another, because since the faces were like sketched from life, you can see that they were just not into each other. And even the other characters, they look kind of humorous. So if you see the painting up close, this weird wedding portrait clothes. It's like they are like, oh, this is a mess. This one is 1638 by Rembrandt, Samson at the wedding. So here's Samson and his wife. Like basically the story, there were some Philistines at his wedding, so then he gives them a riddle, and the riddle was from something fierce came out something sweet, and then he asked them, but that was based on like something that happened to him because after he defeated a lion, from the carcass a beehive formed a colony. So then that's how he found from, that's how he got from something fierce something sweet. So then since it was a riddle based on something that happened to him, then obviously they weren't able to figure it out. And then since they couldn't figure out his weird riddle, then they had to give him like stuff. But then since they didn't want to give him stuff, they threatened to do violence to the wife or his family. So then she'd be like, "Dude, Sansa, just give them the answer to the riddle because this fight is escalating." So then he'd be like, "It's a lion, and this is what happened to me." So then it's another famous wedding that appears in like the Bible, because in the Baroque period with like the Counter-Reformation, they were trying to like win people back from the Protestants. So then that's why most of the audience and even Samson and his wife will address like modern day Europeans, so that way people be thinking like the Bible is still hip and popular, and the teachers reading there apply to like modern time. Well, modern as in the Baroque period, 1600, you know? It's just like people say the Catholic Church is static, but no. They reinvented it so countless of time whenever like their followers start running towards the hills. This is 1679, Justin, once again, the wedding in Cana. Let me see if I can find, oh yeah, here's I found Jesus in the painting. So you gotta search for Jesus. Here he is turning the water into wine because the boss of everyone in the party is going down. So yeah, once again, only one another painting, another wedding portrait that is just hyper focuses on the most famous Bible wedding. What is famous in the Catholic sense, the wedding in Cana, which was when Jesus performed his first canonical miracle. Well, it depends because it varies. Not all of the gospels start in the wedding of Cana. Some of them jump directly to the baptism. But even there, he said to his mother that it wasn't his time. He was like just chilling at a wedding. He wasn't gonna be like doing miracles. But since she insisted on getting bloody, having him fix the wine, then maybe she knew that he could do that. So maybe it wasn't the first time that he had turned water into wine. So obviously she knew that he could do that. Or maybe it's like one of those mothers that like assumes that her baby Jesus can do everything. Since he can bring people back from the dead, turning water into wine should be super easy, barely an inconvenience. This one, we're in the Rococo period, 1744, Francois Boucher, The Wedding of Psychic and Love. As time went on with like the academic painters and stuff, they started like they no longer like hyper focus on the wedding of Cana. They started doing weddings in mythological subjects. So then here's Love marrying his human wife Psyche, whose name is So, but then after they marry, she gets ascended into a goddess. Cause like that was one way for like human people to become gods, and it was to like be wedded to a divinity. 1843, Ferdinand Watt, the Warlower Austrian peasant wedding. So yeah, like the arrangement of all of these peasants, as they like to call them, it sort of reminds me of like the Night Watch from like I think it was like Franz Hall. I forgot who made the Night Watch. Yeah, I think it was Franz Hall. But yeah, then it's like a contrast between like how like the peasants do their weddings and how how like the rich noble aristocrats go about it. And to add to like the chaos over there, always got like Shooter messing around in like the foreground. And it could almost seem like a type of like portrait and stuff because like the faces of most of like the characters are very well defined, including the husband and wife. Yeah, so maybe the family just pulled their money together in order to be able to make like this nice wedding portrait. Mhm. That's a nice painting of how of like a marriage and stuff back then, and like the band playing up there. This one is by Pre-Raphaelite, a more humble-looking type of wedding. You know, they had like the officiating priest and stuff, or just the angels watching over them. Because sometimes a wedding, or whether yeah, they swore to be loyal to each other, but like they haven't gone to the priest yet, or maybe it's the wedding night. By Dante Gabriel Rossetti, The Wedding of Saint George and Princess Sabra. And over here you can see the dragon. Like he killed the dragon, and then I killed the dragon, so it's time to go sleep with the princess, you know. Cause he was like the original dragon slayer, you know, like all of the other dragon slayers. So you know, and he killed the dragon with a lance, and like the piece of the lance is still embedded in like the dead dragon's skull. So then like hmm. So then like all of the other like dragon slayers is just mimicking like the drawing elements from like the legend of Saint George who like fought a dragon. But then like he rose the bar as far as knightly accomplishment. He'd be like, oh, so you killed a magic user or wizard? Well, guess what? I killed a dragon, and I got a princess to boot for my efforts, you know. Cause like the saints are like in different people usually when they think that when they hear saints they imagine that like they don't like have husbands and wives etc. No. Like you know you can get married, you can have like spouses and stuff and still be a saint. You know, it's about doing a great heroic feat or dying in like as a martyr, and you know, and then doing like some miracle in the after they're dead, and like I'm not gonna go into like how you become a Catholic saint. 1859, which is like this is the Impressionism period, but these are more academic arts. Like 1859, James Tissot, once again another wedding in Cana. And then over here, you can see their husband and wife, and then here Jesus in the foreground making the fancy wine. This one is 1883, Konstantin Makovsky, The Boyar's Wedding. Like in this scene specific, they're asking they're telling the wife to like kiss her husband for the first time and they're like doing a drunken toast, and since she's like a virgin and stuff, she feels bashful about kissing a guy, and then like her tutor, her nana, or her wedding coach is telling her, dude, while is just behind her telling her what she's supposed to do now that she's married, because you know even as late as the 1800s, the woman only found out about the birds and bees when like they got married and stuff. But since the husband is more leaning into it, it was socially acceptable for men to like know everything about it, and even they probably even like visited courtesans. So then like it was socially acceptable for the guy to be experienced, but not for the girl to know what she needed to do for marriage and whatever. And that is just a swan, like an awesome swan feast. This one is 1869, Ivan Asimov, another Russian guy, Vasovsky, the wedding of the poet in ancient Greece. So then it's an ancient Greek type of wedding, or how they imagine that the ancient Greeks used to get married in like on an awesome swan boat. Did those both really is it just a fun looking swan? It's a nice wedding portrait. This one is 1887, Albert anchored a civil wedding. So like we're no longer doing a church scene, but they do have a priest kind of there to officiate the wedding. No, it's just two people that like are getting married civilly, without going to the priest, without doing, doing the fancy religion. Like this guy probably got her knocked up. So then, in order to save the family's reputation, then they just gotta get married because even though it's a wedding, like the two fathers here, over here, as you can see, like, and even the mother over there, they look very angry at the proceedings. So yeah, they were probably doing the mess around, and now they gotta get married because the chick is pregnant, and shame on the family and all that nonsense. So they probably had her like married off to someone else when that happened. But yeah, it's a very tense type of wedding. This one is 1897, Edward Burne-Jones, The Wedding of Psyche. Like, remember that Psyche is like the wife of, whatchamacallit, of Cupid. But over here, the procession, but in this one, they completely remove, like, Cupid from like, the entire equation. It just hyper focuses on the bride. And it looks almost as if she's, like, being taken to her death and stuff. It's a very somber procession, because of some weird, Cupid had been told by his mother to curse Psyche to love something that couldn't love her back. But then he ended up falling for the curse, and then he ended up falling in love with her instead of she cursed. So then, since Cupid didn't want to get in trouble with his mother, he disguised his look. So then, as far as Psyche is concerned, she's not marrying Cupid, but like a hideous beast type of person. So you could almost say that like Cupid and Psyche's legend is kind of like the inspiration for Beauty and the Beast. It said that the beast is doing a temporary transformation because he doesn't want his mother to know that the girl that he was supposed to curse, he ended up falling in love with her because of his terrible aiming. This one is 1905, Henry Rousseau, The Wedding Party. Just a very stiff looking wedding painting, but that was the style of Rousseau. It's a wedding. It's just representing all of the people that are getting married. It almost looks photographic, like a painting done based on a photograph. And it does a reference to the Arnolfini wedding because it has a doggo here. Cause remember in the Arnolfini wedding they had like a weird little terrier at the bottom. This one is 1920, Edward Blair Layton, The Wedding Register. So even though she got dressed up for it, they still gotta do the civil matter of like signing and doing all of like the paperwork related to like the wedding. So yeah, they got married in like fancy, well enough to like wear a dress and stuff, but they still gotta sign. And it's interesting how everyone is like in suspense because of her writing her name down. So maybe she wasn't like, so it's like whole suspense even if whether she's gonna go through with this marriage or not. And they even gossiping about it in the end while the groom is like, are you gonna sign it? Are you gonna be my bride? And it's like that moment before she signs the paper. I guess maybe she's like keeping it in suspense that she hasn't signed the papers yet, but in order to make it official, yes, you're married at a wedding, but you're not married under the law but you still need to be married under the law. So until she doesn't sign those papers, her ID doesn't become official. So that's an interesting moment of tension in this wedding portrait, like dramas going on. This one is 1925, Edward Munch, The Wedding of the Bohemian, and Munch seated in the far left. I guess it's this guy over here. But March tended to suffer from like depression and stuff. So this painting that's supposed to be happy-go-lucky wedding, and like everyone in here looks like freaking depressed. And even like the flower over here is like wilting. So maybe they didn't really want to get married, or maybe it was one of the like the wife looks like sad, and while the groom is like talking to her. So maybe she's like one of those arranged marriages that she was forced into it, and nobody's happy about her. This one is 1932 Botero de Arnold Fini wedding. So this is like Botero's version of that painting. He also has a Mona Lisa, but I wanted to show it. And he even drew the stuff, the people in like the little painting. I just like to show a Botero painting as often as possible. and the silly dog or terrier. This one is 1945 Marc Chagall, The Wedding Candles. This wedding procession is like the stuff here on the side is like very trippy looking. Lots of blues, and over here the infamous wedding candles. And this one is 1966 Maria Primashenko wedding. One of those names. I'm sorry if I butchered it, Maria. But yeah, like in this one they're like, I think these are supposed to be horses, but like damn, they're like huge and they look almost like demonic even. the horses, bruh, they're scary.
Oh wow, what is wrong with this horse?
Whatever, not everyone can draw horses. But yeah, here's
from Beauty and the from Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, that's it. Or Mulan, weird looking horses. But yeah, the blue and white, and they're like on a sleigh of horses after they like some people live in cars after they get married, but they show us a horse ride carriage. And that's Western art. That's paintings of Western art in a nutshell of wedding. It started with it began with like the kings, the pharaohs doing like getting married, and then drawing portraits in their sarcophagus because of religious reason. And then like the Greeks, it just became very chill about it, and the Romans started, just depicting husbands and wives that could afford to have a good statue of them, so were painting. And then in medieval times, the only wedding portraits were those scene of weddings that appear in the Bible. And then once money began to flow and kings and queens became a thing again, then the royalty got married. They painted royalty getting married, and then peasant, and then it just became normalized wedding portraits by the time we get to modern times. So I hope you find this wedding portrait podcast of lesson, or whatever you want to call it, amusing. Bye bye. Don't forget to click the join button, and for 99 cents per month you can help grow the channel. Now sit back and enjoy the show.